I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. A Bitcoin bull is all I got left. Sold my house, gold no less. Walls are circling, hollow hands. This man's stronger than the average man. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm not the bubble.
And we are live. Hopefully everything is working on audio and video and everything. And I'm here with Warwick. How are you doing, man?
What's up, man? I'm good. It's early here in California. It's 5 a.m. right now. So I'm doing this interview. I've got my little baby asleep on, so I'm watching the monitor, making sure she doesn't wake up.
So hopefully we don't get disturbed. That's very nice though, doing an early interview.
Gotta do it early, man. So it's usually the way for me. I get up early and get things done before she wakes up.
Oh, that's nice. You do not look like you just woke up. So how are your morning routine doing?
That's good, man. That's good. I'm glad that's coming across better than it feels.
Yeah. I we have been speaking for a few minutes, and I did not get the idea that you were up at 5 a.m. 5 a.m. Yeah, so that's good. Yeah, so I'm very excited to have you here. So Novopangea, if no one knows, what is that?
Yeah, so we've got a game that we're launching on June 11th. So we've been actively building with the community, but essentially it's sort of in the fantasy genre. So the best way to describe it, it's kind of think of like Game of Thrones meets Lord of the Rings, almost like, where you have six unique realms that are built around core elements. So water, earth, space, time, light. So those are really sort of the core elements, and all have key attributes, obviously based on their element. And so we're building kind of this very rich foundational story around these realms. So the characters, the creatures, they're all very unique, the landscapes, and obviously if anybody that's seen our NFTs and artwork, that really comes through with this, it's very sort of unique, at least base storyline and lore that'll kind of be driving a story piece and obviously a gameplay piece as well. So what's going to start off as kind of where this all really launches off, we've got two very unique sort of game modes that are going to intersect with each other. We're starting off with a more, I would say, call it a economy sort of management style of gameplay. So if you've ever played SimCity or any sort of like older tycoon type games where you had to sort of manage infrastructure and resources and buildings and that cool stuff, that's kind of where this gameplay launches off. It's kind of the inverse, I guess, of what a lot of other games are doing, where they typically do land and things second. But for us, we wanted to build that economic foundation first, and then PvP is going to come later. So, and that's exciting because you'll have to purchase resources and in-game assets from these foundational players, essentially, that are getting into the economy layer now. So we're pretty excited about the roadmap and where everything's going.
Yeah, that's awesome. And while you were talking, people got to see your website and your artwork over my face and everything, so that was good. Multiple people in the chat are saying that they love your art, and it's really good. You have a lot of cool animation and really beautiful artwork. Is that talent from in-house?
Yeah, it's all in-house. So we have a team that's been with us from day one. And so, we have around, I think it's pushing nearly 15 to 20 guys now that are all in South America. And Yeah, so I mean, we come from the entertainment and creative space, so like we were chatting before we started. I mean, a lot of our guys, we have a lot of corporate experience. I worked at Pepsi for a decade, and we have guys that are from the entertainment space that have worked for major studios, and so yeah, the creative and the entertainment stuff really has shined through for us. We wanted to elevate that right from the jump. Solid artwork, really creative animation, sound effects, all these sort of things, just to kind of really elevate the experience. And that's really going to be a common theme that you'll see through all the stuff that we do, is that we want to create an engaging experience for the community.
Yeah, and you've been working with this for a long time. I think I first got a message from you that you're building something in May last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's been a lot of planning, and I think we sat on the sidelines, quite honestly, for a long time. The space was just evolving and moving so fast last year, and so I think if you were to go back and look at our original scratches and sketches, and it's completely on a different plane from where it was, originally started, and so. I mean, quite honestly, I mean, we were really going to drive in as sort of a more story-based art type project. And that was sort of doing extremely well last year. And then that's kind of flamed out a little. The community's obviously matured a lot in 12 months, a lot more selective in terms of where they're spending and those sort of things now. So I think we recognized that, and so we just sort of pumped the brakes and said, look, I think we need to just sit back here and observe and kind of get a feel for where we really need to build, the right pathway for this community. And so that was kind of why we settled on a hybrid type of approach of let's utilize the core strengths of the group, which is obviously story building, creative, gaming, and how can we marry that together into a unique experience to build something extremely cool on chain, but obviously a huge focus for us is building this brand off chain as well. So it's going to be a big piece for us.
So what does building brand off chain mean?
Yeah, so I mean, we're planning to do, a big piece of this is going to be around the story part, like I mentioned. So we feel that the way that we've kind of set the story up and the realms and the characters and the IP, that there's a huge pipeline here to build more, I would say, full-length creative animation. So for us, like, we're planning to really go hard into that space. So whether it's streaming content, comics, a whole range of different sort of media, we want to use that as kind of a plan to build that and then have the ability for users to then take a position on how they want the story and the arcing to go, have a whole staking piece around that to earn Novo rewards. So it's going to be, we sort of look at it as a bridge to move potential new users on chain. So consume the content off chain and then move them on chain if they're new to the space. So we think it's a good way for us to get new users.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good idea. And then you can have all these awesome merch. So this is something that you just sent me. So really love that one. So I've had a few questions in the chat where Nick has already answered them, but I think you should answer them, and you can probably do it better. If someone is new to Novo and they're like, okay, the game is soon launching in about 2 months, the beta version. What do I need to get started?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm glad someone asked it. So yeah, I mean, again, like, our concept is, I would say it's different from everything else you'll see on Wax. And where it's different is that a lot of the projects, well, I'd say 99% of the projects, you can essentially go and get the in-game assets from a drop. That's the typical pathway to getting your assets. And so we've created a layer in the middle, which we've called creator credits. And so what we did was, when you actually purchase a pack you will get 10 cards in a pack, and those obviously have different rarities of cards, and the rarities essentially give you a different tier of credits. And so if you go to our website, there's a whole section on what those tiers are. And so you can then log into the Novo hub, and you can essentially transfer any of those cards to receive in-game assets at that point. And the reason why we created that middle layer was because at the time there was a massive botting problem that was happening. There was a lot of frustration in the community that they couldn't get assets. They're having to overpay on the secondary just to get a foot in the door. So we thought, let's do something different and creative to try to sort of protect the ecosystem and really encourage players that genuinely want the game assets can get them. And so that's sort of been the whole premise of what we've been able to try to achieve. So sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but it's so first and foremost, it's buy a pack. You can create an account at hub.novopangea.io. And so you can log in with your Wax or Anchor wallet. You'll be able to see all your cards in there as soon as you log in. And then there's a marketplace essentially where you can then transfer your cards for land, buildings if they're available. We've got our little skilled worker guys coming up here in a couple of weeks. So all those in-game assets that are going to be driving this economy play will be available for players to get there.
Yeah, and you can see all your land and everything in there. So what role with land have? Why would I as a player want that, or do I need that, or
Yeah, so there's going to be a couple of different pathways for players. So you can certainly get land if you don't want to attach a building to your land. So with our game, it is one building is assigned to one plot. So I know with some other games you can have multiple buildings on one plot, but it is with ours. If you think of the older sort of Sims games where there's a 1x1 square, one building typically sits on the square. So that's kind of, it's just very simple in that regard. So you can rent out your land. So if you just want to be a passive player and earn a rental income, you can. If you want to be a landowner and a building owner, you can do that as well. You can have multiple plots of land. And then there's also going to be a unique piece coming up where you're going to have essentially labor in your buildings, so which we've called skilled workers. So building owners can obviously acquire skilled worker NFTs if they wish, but you could also play the game as in terms of like what we're calling think of it almost like as a subcontractor where you have a team of laborers. So if you just want to acquire a team of skilled workers, you'll be able to then assign those workers to a building. So building owners might say, hey, I don't want to have my own workers. I want to outsource it. So you'll be able to go into the UI and see building owners that have posted jobs essentially. And you can then just assign your worker to the building and earn Obsidian, which is the in-game currency of the game.
So, okay, Obsidian is what the token is called. Is that something you will have as a pre-sale or something, or is that only from the game?
Yeah, so it's a 2-token game. So Novo will be the governance token of the game. So there'll be more sort of detailed token economics release about Novo. It's going to be a multi-chain token. So we are planning to launch, and obviously I know you and I have talked about this as well, but yeah, so I mean, we are planning to have a bridge and teleport stood up as a part of the Novo launch. So we're, swinging for the fences right out of the gates. So MVP won't launch with that. It will come after MVP. But yes, Obsidian is more, I would say, the in-game currency. We are planning for it to have liquidity on Alcor, but not at the start. So at the start, we're essentially just launching beta, where the resources and Obsidian, it won't be tradable to start. it won't be long before it is. But those that have been following along with us are aware we've been working with Machinations on the Web3 ecosystem balancing. So we've put in a lot of time and money into getting this right. So we want to make sure that before we do that and real data is coming back in, we can sort of make sure that our modeling that we've done is tracking with what our hypotheses were. So as soon as we see that, and we can make sure that we're not putting any sort of hyper downward pressure on Obsidian, then we can release it.
Okay, yeah. So that sounds good. And Machinations. So if anyone most people will have no idea what that is. Why do you use that, and what benefit did that give you?
Yeah, so Machinations, so it's machinations.io if you want to go check it out. Essentially is a third-party software group that has developed Turing software that essentially allows blockchain-based games to model their entire ecosystem. So everything from NFTs to your token economics, your resources, you build your core game loops essentially in the software. And then you can add player personas as well. So whales to, once a week login individuals. It allows you to then, you can essentially model thousands of hours of gameplay to see what's going to happen to your resources, your token. Is it going to turn hyperinflationary? Are we giving away too much yield? It allows you to sort of build all those different scenarios in advance. To try to essentially get your yields and your balancing correct before you start the game. Once the game goes live, then we have analytics data that then pipes back into Machinations. So we can start to get alerts to say, hey, this is going to start turning inflationary in 3 or 4 months. You may want to make an adjustment or correction now and let your community know. So it's not as dramatic in 3 or 4 months' time, and you're seeing situations that we've all seen in the last 6 months.
That really sounds awesome. But all these models you're doing, what happens if you miss a reality that could happen? Will that take the entire model and throw it, or will that be adapted with the new data that is put in? Yeah,
look, I mean, let's be realistic. There's no way we're going to get this 100% spot on. I mean, it is very much a finger in the air exercise. But I think what's important with the ecosystem that we've built is that we have a lot of drains for the resources, whether it's the in-game resources that you're producing in the buildings or Obsidian itself. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of Web3 factors that we've created assumptions on. But overall, we shouldn't see Obsidian tip, because we've fundamentally built the drains into the game to ensure that you're not going to have a situation where there's just excessive stockpiling of the token at the start. If you want to progress in the game, you're going to have to use your resources. And that is a core difference with our game versus some of the others, because if you've played Clash of Clans or just any progressions type of game, everybody starts at level 1. And so there's a leveling up mechanism that happens through our gameplay. So like Clash, we will have like this town hall that sits in the middle of your little district that you'll be a part of. And you'll have to stake Novo to the town hall to level up. So the community has to work together to achieve that. So there's going to be essentially thresholds that you'll need to meet to level up. And that's really how you're going to progress in this game. So you're going to have to invest time and effort and strategy to progress and move forward. It's not just going to be a single clicker where you can just accumulate tokens all day long. You'll have to think about how you want to play the game, and then you're also going to have to work with your teammates as well. Okay,
yeah. And the staking of Novo to the town hall,
yeah,
that sounds like an interesting thing. if you need these assets, you need land, or you need to be a worker, or you need buildings, and then you need to stake Novo. What type of person do you think will be the entry level person, and how much time or money do you think they need to put in?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think that's why we're excited about the skilled worker play. And I think like right now we've priced it at around, so 13, call it 13 creator credits to get a skilled worker. So if you look at the secondary today, I think a common's going for $1.10 or something like that. So I mean, it's a little over $15, essentially, a little less, to get into the game, which we feel is a good price compared to some of the other games that are out there. And that's a good pathway for players as well, because if you assign your worker to a building, that building owner is paying you obsidian for your shift, essentially. So there will be some resource costs. You'll have to have some food and some different things that you've got to feed your workers and stuff like that. But you can use the Novo exchange in game to swap obsidian for materials, or you can swap your materials for obsidian. So there'll be a two-way sort of exchange there. And so, yeah, you're not going to have all of the assets to play this game. We are planning to also allow outside investors that don't even want to play the game can stake Novo to the town halls. So there's going to be a whole piece coming out about that, because we want to, again, encourage as much liquidity to the game as possible. And so allowing those outside investors that just may want to stake some Novo for rewards, it'll also help the in-play guys to be able to level up as well. So, you'll have to essentially stake a proportion of your asset base. So if you're sitting on a lot of land, you'll have a threshold of Novo that you'll essentially have to stake that's in proportion to a teammate that might only have one asset, for example. So that's obviously how we're going to sort of have the distribution.
And so let's say I am the investor, I buy a lot of Novo, I have a lot of these tokens. It sounds like I would want to find people that need that Novo to stake so they can play. Will it work like that, or will I just go and find the biggest player and just stake to that one, or how will it work?
Yeah, so I think, there's some things we're still finalizing around. Is there going to be a cap on how many tokens, for example? Is there a percentage of the pool that can come from outside? So I think we've got to finalize some of those details. We've had, honestly, back and forth conversations about, whether it's uncapped or capped. But yes, and that, to your point, is why we're having the conversations, because I think it will dictate a pathway that somebody takes, whether they look for a district that maybe there's not much staking going on, and maybe there are more rewards to garner from that pool. So I think we've got to find some sort of middle ground. I think that's going to work. So at the end of the day, there's an encouragement to obviously invest into the game, but also not creating a situation where it's just tipping, where you're just gravitating to the better districts and it's leaving ghost towns, essentially. So yeah, there's some complexity there that we're still working through, but I think we'll land on a pretty good solution.
That's nice. You mentioned before about playing with your friends or your team. Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah, so one of the aspects of the game is going to be, so as I mentioned, as a building owner, you will be able to essentially acquire your own labor if you want to. But we are going to institute a cap on that. So we haven't released what the cap is at the moment, but essentially you won't be able to just buy your way through the game. At some point when it comes to labor, you will have to work with other players. So, that's going to be, we felt was an important piece of the gameplay, was that, there might be a level threshold, or it just might be a skilled worker threshold. But at some point, you are going to have to work with other players. So that's going to be crucial even for those that are sitting on a lot of land at the start, is that if you had 100 land plots, let's just say, and some guys do, you won't be able to just go into a district and take it all. That will be a very poor strategic move, because at some point you're then going to have to post jobs, and that's going to put now an extra time constraint on a player, because we are going to be having the aspect of travel implemented into the game. So if you're traveling, think about it, just crossing a state or something like that. I mean, it'd be like for you, Anders, going from the top of Sweden to the bottom, right? I mean, it's just, there's a time factor now. There's going to be a cooldown factor that you're going to have to factor in now. And that's going to deter some players from wanting to take that job at that building. So I think it's fine to grab a cluster of land, but I think the smart players, we're already seeing it in our community, are looking for others to play and partner up with, so when the districts become available, it's like, hey, like, why don't we team up and grab plots, and we can then share resources and all that good stuff. And that's the type of gameplay we're hoping we see develop.
And you have different lands. Me as a user, do I want to find only in like the time realm or the space realm, or do I want to have a mix of everything?
Yeah, I think you definitely, if you're planning to go full bore, you'll want to have a mix. And so at the very start, for MVP, you're not going to be able to set up your business ecosystems in the other realms. So what we're planning to do is that you're going to have just like in real life, you'll have to have some sort of permit, if you want to have business outside of, your own country, or your own state. You essentially have to have permits and things like that, right? If you want to set up business somewhere else. So we are planning to have that, because we want to start to institute, and this is as the roadmap evolves, see resources start to go cross-border, because that's where we're going to start to see blending and these sort of fun things that really feed into PvP.
Yeah.
Because you may now have a space resource, that gets added to, I'm just making it up, a shield or something, a piece of armor from the Earth realm that gives you now some sort of buff or nerf in a PvP combat type of situation. So those are some of where the resource properties are going to really pay off later. So we're planning to have outposts and these sort of things, trading posts, where you'll be able to move resources back, to a trading post in your resource in your own district, and then sell those to other players. So it's just going to create a very rich economy type of gameplay immersed then with PvP. And that's what we're excited about, is we're trying to create as close as a resemblance to in real life as you could get, within reason, of course.
Okay, that's cool. So it's probably a good idea to have different ones. And then we have rarities. How do they impact the lands?
Yeah, so there's no rarities on land at all. So, and this is what I was saying, of where at the minute, everybody's just starting at the same point. So, there really is just a land claim that you're purchasing. We've been ideating, quite honestly, at the moment on whether we do institute levels for land. So whether you can start to maybe level up your land as well. And I think that is probably something we're going to do, because I think it's important for landowners that just want to passively pay, but also get involved in staking for Novo and things like that, that it's going to provide them with better yields, because I just don't have time, to play, right? So I think that's a gap that we definitely need to fix, quite honestly. So, but yeah, at the minute, there's no essentially aping in and getting a legendary land and having more yield at the jump. Everybody starts at the same place, and we felt that was important for building a more play and earn type of game versus play to earn. So
yeah, that's awesome. And Swoot has a good question in the chat. What kind of max level gameplay can we expect? Because what usually happens in play turn is that those that continue to build their base or their whatever the game is, you max out. You can't do anything more in your account. What you can do then is have multiple accounts, or you start to just dump everything you earn because you can't really do anything else.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, there's always sort of this, law of diminishing marginal utility is essentially what they call it, where it just starts to diminish at some point. So I think, there's going to be, and I think this sort of also ties back into your other question about, well, why would I want to have ecosystems in other realms? So, and I think that's sort of, when you think about the amount of leveling there's going to be in the game for one district, if you then have multiple ecosystems, so you've got obviously an economic layer, then you've got a PvP layer that's coming. I think that roadmap of what we're planning is that we are just going to constantly be updating the game, releasing new content, releasing new materials, secret land, doing things on other chains. There's a lot of things that we've been ideating around because, quite frankly, our goal is to be chain agnostic. So I think max is going to be quite some time, in the future. I think like any game, sure. I mean, how many people have actually maxed out Clash of Clans? So it's kind of, there's always new levels and things I think you can add. Warcraft is a great example of that, where they've just continued to implement new content, new worlds and different things to keep their users continually engaged. Yep. So I think for us, it's something we understand, having come from our past lives, that we're obviously very focused on not just releasing this game and then saying, peace out, everybody. Like, it's going to be an ongoing evolution to just continually release new things and keep everybody engaged and active, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's good. And you just mentioned Warcraft. I've actually jumped into that game again, World of Warcraft, now for the first time in many years, and I'm having probably more fun than I've ever had before. I know that people that played it all the time hate a lot of things they are doing, but I love it. Super fun. So you said for the tokens, there are a lot of drains. What kind of drains can people expect to find?
Yeah, so if you think about, again, in real life, so if you have a building, well, you have expenses each day. So there's obviously costs to run the building. There's costs to employ people. There's maintenance that you have to take care of, right? So there's obviously daily building expenses that you're going to have. If you have a skilled worker, you need to feed that person, feed yourself. You need to live somewhere. So there's all of these sort of, again, anybody that's played any sort of Sims or Tycoon Civilization type games, knows that there's just daily things that you have to manage. So, and again, we just sort of felt that's important because it's a very sort of strategic sort of gameplay that we're sort of trying to introduce here at the start. So managing those pieces are going to be important, and those players will sort of figure out how they want to do that best. Either having a complete ecosystem to self-manage themselves, or maybe go harder on one resource versus the other and then exchange for the things that you don't have. So, I think there's multiple pathways, and I think that's the part that will make it fun, is players will start to figure out what they think is best.
Yeah, and they will probably do things you have not thought about yet.
I am sure.
And okay, so one big thing with all these projects where you can earn something is that it incentivizes automation. What's your thought about using bots and things like that?
Yeah, look, I mean, it sort of always has a dirty connotation to it. I've been involved in SaaS a long time in my career, and automation has been, honestly, it's key if you want to scale anything. But I think it's got to be done the right way. So I think again, where the challenging part I think with our game is that there's a lot of moving components to it, because you're going to have, especially with the skilled workers, which is really a dynamic part of the game. The skilled worker essentially will have a 12-hour shift, right? So I think that's type of a scenario type of there where you may want to try, to automate that type of, I've got to find this guy a job or this gal a job, and, can I automate that? So then that person then has to go into this 24-hour rest period, after they've completed a shift. But you can reduce that rest period if you have more of the high-end utility cards from our card packs. So if you're sitting on an Epic and up, you'll actually be able to reduce the cooldowns. So anywhere there's some sort of implementation of time and cooldowns, that's where we've implemented some utility from the pack drops. So like other projects that membership cards or whatever, to reduce those cooldowns, that's where those cards have utility. So there will be probably some things you can automate, and there's just going to be things that you can't. So, so I think overall the consensus was, as developers, we want to see players coming back to the experience. Time on site, and all those sort of analytical metrics are important. I think for the health and the long term of the game. So, it's not, we're not opposed to automation, but I think it's important that players are actively engaging, especially because we have the community nature. So implementing things in the future like social chat and those sort of things into the experience versus, having to go to a Discord all the time. Those are some of the things we're thinking about. Just like you can today with Warcraft and Fortnite and those type of games, you can chat with your friends and it all happens end to end.
Yeah, and like removing. Okay, let's start with the idea about bots. People have an idea that they are always bad, and I don't agree, because they add activity, they can add liquidity, they can add a lot of positive things to the ecosystem that benefits everyone. Now, automation can also abuse systems, and it can be a problem.
Right.
And any place where anyone can or are incentivized to automate something, they will do it. The problem usually is, how can we benefit humans in the same way as bots? So people that enjoy the game or want to play the game, how can we make sure that they don't lose that advantage towards the bots? And one project that are working on one idea for that is like the Dish project, the SOS, Zombie Outbreak Survival, where they increase the time between each action, so bots don't have the same advantage as they have in a shorter duration. The shorter duration, the more times they can do the action every day compared to a normal user. And I think that's if you add time, and the shorter duration is, the more advantage the bot will have, because it's about hitting the button the first time and then doing that as often as you can. So yeah, like the 12-hour way, I think that's a great way to actually manage, because it's not too hard for people to go in and use their worker, and then the bot will not have to do it when they are sleeping or when they are working. They can actually do that as well. So
yeah, correct. And that was honestly, it was feedback we got from the community. I mean, we've solicited a lot of great feedback that's come in from our community, and we've implemented a lot of it. And we've been very transparent right from the get-go that we're not the experts in everything, and there's a lot of smart people that are here. So, we've actively listened to things that we know our community have asked for. And so this topic came up quite a few times, and so I think we've landed on something that we feel is going to be fair and equitable, I think, for everybody. But also strategic in nature as well for those players that do want to collect, some more of those high-end cards. There's some utility there for them as well. So, I think it's a good balance.
Yeah, as Nick is saying in the chat, one problem with the longer duration is that you might lose engagement. You might forget to log in. You might, not log in, and not because you don't like it, or just that you have something else that is more engaging. There's a reason why we go and watch videos that are 10-second and 50-second long, because we have a short attention span. Oh.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, it's a good point that Nick brings up, and I think that's where, over time, and again, like I'm a data junkie, where I don't get emotional about decisions until I see data, and so I think that's key is, let's allow the data to really show us the way. And if you need to make adjustments because you're seeing too much churn, for that reason that Nick's mentioning, then you may need to make an adjustment, or you may need to institute some other utility tools that allow people to, buy one-day passes or something, for cooldowns or whatever it might be, that allow that person that's just, well, I can't afford a legendary or something like that, but can I use some of the materials that I've accumulated? So I think there's a whole range of different things that we can implement into the game, to sort of help that player not feel like they're just going to lose interest, because it's just getting too time consuming.
If people would want to have a more rare card and want to take advantage of that, you have a lot of schemas in your collection. What type of NFT do they want to get?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think if you are planning to be more of an active player in the game, then, we had some very high-end packs that sort of went very quick in the last sort of chapter release we did, and then our middle tier cards ended up, there was some amazing returns that came from those packs. So, but yeah, I mean, I think if you're accumulating epics and up, and epics are still even very affordable on secondary, then that's kind of where I personally, as a collector and a player, would be targeting to have a few of those in my collection, just to give me some flexibility, of how I want to kind of set up my strategy around sort of managing, looping these sort of skilled workers around. So, again, it's not financial advice or any of that kind of stuff, but that's just, a suggestion.
So it's from the chapter 1 schema, I guess.
Yeah, so any of the cards that we've released, even going all the way back to the promo cards that were for free, that we airdropped 20,000 of those. I mean, so every card right from the start, a promo card, a sketch card, they all have different rarities and they all have creator credits assigned to them. So any card that we release will have some sort of credit value associated to it. So that's another way that a lot of players at the start got, a greater edge, because they were participating in, these giveaways and stuff like that. So our riders packs are really what is left right now. So, again, like we've done things a little differently, where we didn't do the traditional sort of low supply drop, create the FOMO and sort of thing. Our whole approach was we wanted to have assets available for players. The pacing of this project, we've gone I would just diligently, at a steady pace. And so like interviews like today, some people have never even heard of Novopangea. So, those that see even today's content, it's like, well, I want to have a pack available for them, so they're not thinking, well, shit, I got to go spend like $150 now on a pack. It's like, no, you can go get one for $19 like after this interview. So it's like, I think that's important that, again, it's my personal opinion, but I think some projects are not getting that. That everybody has different timelines of where they want to potentially get in on a project based on their personal situation. So it's like, allow that person to get in when they're ready, have content available for them to get, And that's why the creator credit concept is unique for us, because you do have to use those cards if you want to get the in-game assets, which ultimately it's what people want. So for us, it allows us to manage that supply in those chapter releases that way.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm just about to link the sale as well in the chat. I just bought a pack while we're talking. That's the way to do it. So yeah, I think that's good, because if you get really into a project, you might not go into it because the entry point is too high.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big problem. But I think, like, you wanted to showcase the interface and everything. I think we should jump into that. We have been talking. Time went by pretty fast. 45 minutes already.
Yeah, let's do that, because I think it's important for people to kind of see, what some of the experience is going to look like. So just to preface this, so this is just you're just going to see sort of a flat UI. So nothing's really going to be active or anything like this. Is not on the chain or anything. So these are just UIs, right? So so this is kind of how the experience will begin. You'll come in, and so there's just kind of these entry sort of screens. So if it's your first time kind of logging in to the gameplay, so this is kind of where some of your selections are going to have to happen, right? So I'm just going to simulate what would happen if I choose Earth Realm, for example. So let's just say I want to be an Earth player. What you'll see is like the districts that are available. So each realm essentially is going to be cut up into districts. And so there will be 200 districts. There's 100 land plots per district. And that's lifetime, right? We're not releasing that at the start. It's a lot smaller than that. We're going to pace the releases out as demand grows for the game. We'll release more. And obviously what a person has to potentially spend with creator credits to get land, for example, will exponentially increase over time as well. So that, again, is where there is some advantage to investing early. But once you choose a district, then we sort of now start to get into the experience, right? So, you already start to see kind of these sort of square type, very Sims-like, type of UI, right? Of where there's different buildings and things that are starting to sort of hit the UI. And so if I've actually acquired some assets, this is my first time coming in, I want to get a land plot, so I can click on one of the squares, for example. And then any assets that you have accumulated will then, show up in kind of this UI here. And then you can obviously, if this is the plot that you want, you can then just select it, and then obviously the transaction process is going to happen, and et cetera, et cetera. So, now you've actually got this plot, and you'll see kind of this fence is now around it. And that sort of indicates to other players that plot's gone now, right? So when you start to see the fence, and then in the Earth's case, there's kind of this trunk, and so there's a string of numbers here. This will actually be a rental price, right? That will be in Obsidian. So it won't be obviously this long string of numbers, but what that'll indicate to players is, so for those that are looking to rent a land from someone, they can come in. And now if you're sitting on a bunch of buildings, so let's just say I've got some energy mines, but I don't have land, for example, or I don't want land, then I can just come in here and I can assign, my building to that, specific plot. There's going to be some different UIs here in terms of managing your assets. And this is not the final UI, by the way, but essentially clicking on these little boxes right now, this will take you to kind of like your inventory UI, if you will. So you can see your land, you'll be able to see your buildings, any skilled workers that you have. So you can kind of see here, like, this is a player that's collected some shadow stuff as well. But you'll kind of see, you know, it's saying here like you need a passport or a permit or whatever it's going to be. So these, you know, you don't have any of these clickable call to actions here right now. And obviously we're kind of showcasing here that, you know, there's more to come around sort of managing your PvP stuff in the future. But this is kind of where, you know, again, like I was saying, if you have skilled workers, for example, you can, you know, potentially find assignments. So this is kind of very much like what prospectors were doing with their gameplay of where you could find work. So again, this is sort of now it takes you over to the jobs UI.
Yep.
So any building owners that have toggled on the settings to say, hey, I want my building to be available for other players, it'll appear here. And then you can just go in. It'll take you then to that plot in the main UI again, and here you can add your worker.
Yep.
So let me just go back and show a couple of things. So what we got here. So just in terms of buildings, so this will kind of show you just here you can actually go in as well and set your. So in terms of wages, I just want to point this out because it's important at the start. So for MVP, we are going to essentially create like a minimum wage, if you will. So we are planning to allow players to have flexibility to set wages in the future. There'll obviously be a floor as well. So again, there won't be scenarios where you can just set your wage to 0 and then set up multi-accounts and then, you know, grab your own stuff. Like there's going to be floors in place to prevent those type of things. So you'll be able to set your wages in the future, but to start the game for MVP and to, again, assess data, you know, we are going to sort of cap the wage just to kind of see how things are moving, and then we'll release it. So then players will have flexibility to come in and set the wage for the shift. But this is kind of, again, like I was saying to you, Anders, of where the drains are. So this will be here where you can start to see, you know, how much energy is it going to cost for the shift? How many materials resources is it going to cost for maintenance for the shift? Here is where you will toggle on or off if you want to use your own workers. So if you plan to use your own workers, then as I mentioned, what it will do in the UI is that on that opening screen, you won't be able to click on it to assign a worker to the building. So it just essentially removes that building from the job board. So again, this will be some management, right, of what you'll have to decide, because if you forget to toggle it, then you might have some guys working in your building that you don't want. But it's only for 12 hours. So, you know, and obviously the player's got to go back in each time. It's not like an auto renew or anything like that, because you have to execute the contract each time. So that's just, again, some things there.
Can I, as an owner, throw out the person after the 12 hours?
Sorry, say that again?
Can I throw out a worker from my building after the 12-hour passed?
Yeah, so once the 12-hour ends, you know, that shift is over. So if by chance the building owner has, you know, no longer wants to have that, so I mean, once it ends, you know, they'll need to come in and toggle it back on again. But yes, you know, that was sort of where there'll be some flexibility, you know, to do those sort of things. So if you have your own workers in your buildings, you could cancel, you know, the shift, if you will. You'll obviously end up eating those resources, but, you know, for whatever reason, if you just made a mistake, you can obviously do that if you're using your own ecosystem of players. Your own ecosystem of workers. So again, like there's just some things there that you can do. So to get to the job board, you can do that from the main screen. So you can also see players that have rented out their land. You can assign your building there, and like I mentioned, there's a jobs board here. There'll be some other clickable things here, like getting into your profile. So when sort of the staking layers get implemented with the town hall, here's kind of where you can start to see, how you're tracking to that next level of threshold. Do you have any Novo tokens yet? So again, there'll be links here to send you to the appropriate places to get Novo if you need to. And obviously, as you reach these thresholds too, so just like in Clash, there'll be a cap on your storage, so you will have to upgrade it at some point. So obviously, again, that's just going to be part of the management of how you're playing the game. So, you'll have to upgrade storage at some point as well. And and then obviously all that lives in the main UI here as well. And store here. So this is kind of where you'll be able to exchange your resources. So if have accumulated a bunch of energy, for example, here's kind of where this is not set in stone, by the way, just prefacing that. But you can come in and then swap, some energy for obsidian. If you have a materials building, you could swap that, etc. Or inversely, you can go the other way. You could obviously buy energy with some obsidian if you've, been accumulating obsidian. So there'll be ways for players to kind of get the pieces they need in the game as well.
Yeah. That's cool. Like, how many land plots do we have? Is the district looking the same in the UI or?
Yeah, so the districts will look the same. Again, like just level setting expectations. This background will probably be still to start, but eventually it is going to have some movement and some different things and sound effects that you can toggle on and off and things like that, just to kind of liven up the experience. So again, we're just sort of really focused on getting this beta out with the core sort of gameplay, so we can start to really assess what's working and what's not working. But yeah, there's essentially 2,000 land plots per realm in beta, right? So that's kind of what we've got. There's land still available. I think about nearly 70% of it's gone. But there is still some land available, and we think that's a good, healthy number for us, based on the fact that a lot of the assets are lower in price to kind of get in. So you can either pick up land on the secondary right now, or you can, purchase packs and do it through cards, through the create a credit transfer process. So it's 36 credits for a piece of land. Buildings typically go for 20 and workers are 13. So obviously how you get to those numbers could be through packs or buying on secondary. So yeah, there's different ways to get the resources right now, just depending on how you want to play. And then skilled workers, like I said, will be coming out in a couple of weeks once we release the actual yields of the buildings. So that's what we're planning to do next. Is we're very close to getting machination certification of our economy.
Yep.
And then once that happens, we'll release all the costs, the earning. We felt that was important to get that out next before we release skilled workers, because it might impact individual strategies. But in terms of skilled workers, there will be, so the max amount of skilled workers that you can have in a building for level 1 is 3. So there's 750 buildings that have been released for beta right now. So there'll be, whatever the math is on that, call it 2,200 or something, workers available, so there'll be an exact match basically. So there won't be an excess or, of workers out there. So you won't have a situation where I can't find a job, for example.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be any sort of travel cooldowns or anything like that in beta. So, if a worker does need to be assigned to a different district, that's fine. Because again, we're trying to get get data analytics here at the start to just kind of see how things are working and not working.
Yeah.
But travel will come in at some point. So that will be a piece that players will have to think about, of maybe there's certain plots that you want and maybe there's certain plots that you don't want. If you are thinking about cross-realm travel or transportation of resources, then that might be a consideration that you think about of, well, do I want to be in a district maybe that's closer to a border? Do I not want to have to go around this mountain? Just things like that. So, those are just some tips.
Yeah, that's cool. Is there anything else you want to show in the interface, or else we can close the screen share?
Yeah, no, I think that covered it, unless there were other questions, or I know we've covered a lot. So
no, I think it's good. You have mentioned pretty much everything that I had as a question before. People can go into your hub. They can essentially earn NFTs, get points, and these can be used for lands and buildings and things. In your marketplace, in your hub, you have something called a VIP game launch. Mm-hmm. Is that something people need, or is that a benefit in some way?
So what we did with that was, so you'll get a free writers pack. There's also going to be some resource packs that we release before the game starts. So obviously people are going to need some materials and some obsidian just to get started. So we're planning to release some of those to VIPs and have those available in the marketplace as well. But that was just another benefit. And we actually our residential buildings, we just released the sketches to the VIPs yesterday, and they got to choose which one is going to be used in the game. So there's just different benefits like that, different experiences. When the game is actually in our staging site and working, we're going to set up a Zoom call for all the VIPs where they can come on with me. I'm going to take them through the game. They can ask questions and all that good stuff. And so we're just trying to create just some different experiences. It's not set up in a way to try to create any sort of disadvantage for other people. It's just, if you want to get some access to things, and if those type of experiences are fun for you, then there's something there for you.
That's awesome. I think that's really attractive for people to feel like they get more information, they can contribute, they can go in and vote on things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been very active in Discord, and we certainly are still very active in all the chat channels. So it's not a case of like all this attention's now shifting. That's not the case. We just wanted to sort of provide some extra experiences, for those others situations.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm sure people here that will see this now or later. I mean, we are very early in the US time zone right now, so they will probably catch it later. I think they will be excited about there's still lands available on the primary market by your interface where you can use the creator credits.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's very early. I mean, and like I said, we've done that by design. And I know, even Michael, spoke about that with blockchain brawlers and things like that. I mean, it's, the pacing is very important. And I think for us, we didn't want to get in over our head. We've certainly released probably more than what they have, but I think based on our model, it felt like it was a good fit. There was obviously a lot of concern about oversupply and things like that. And that was kind of why we did cap it. It's more like this is for the lifetime of the game. It's not being released right at the start. We'll grow just like you would, with any civilization. It grows over time. And we'll release more as there's demand for it. So I think for us, it is a case of let's make sure we're keeping, again, it all gets back to stabilization of your economic layers with Web3 is monitor the data, and make sure that things are not tipping in the wrong way, where it becomes unhealthy. We absolutely want asset appreciation for our players. That's why we're doing the leveling up mechanic. Our NFTs are dynamic. We're using mutable data. So, as your building levels up, that asset changes, so you're not going to have to craft a new one. The actual image, the data, all of that, it all changes on the NFT itself. And, again, we thought this got back to the original premise of what we thought blockchain gaming really should be, and that's growing the asset that you've purchased. It's always talked about of, wouldn't it be cool if I could sell my Warcraft or my Fortnite shit? But you can't. Well, It's like, okay, well, here's the situation where you're putting all this time and energy and money potentially into this asset. Let it be dynamic and grow with you. And then when the time comes where you want to piece out, then you can sell it on the secondary, and you've obviously made your ROI at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I see it the same thing in World of Warcraft. When I used to work as a chef, I also wanted to play World of Warcraft. I couldn't feel like I could spend all my game time that was limited to a few hours to just mine gold. So I saw it as I could trade 1 hour at work to buy gold instead of spending all my game time to farm gold. And that is not really something you should do in WoW as far as I know. I think they are still not fans about selling gold, but people have been selling gold since WoW came along.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit like, I understand the perspective, but I think it's wrong as well. You should be able to sell a character that has these cool achievements or titles, and like, people should be able to buy it, and you should be able to sell it. And I guess that's where NFTs come in, and I agree fully there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I think that's where, we've been inspired by a lot of different games. You'll see it kind of as you interact with our game at the start and in the future. Everything from Zelda to Final Fantasy and everything in between. So it's a lot of different things. And yeah, I mean, I think for us, we're all gamers on our team, and we've all had different experiences where we just thought, we've all had those conversations of, shit, I'm sitting on this thing, and how much money would I have made if I could have sold it? So yeah, look, it's exciting. So, but I think it's challenging, honestly, as a developer getting into this space now. There's so much complexity with Web3, and it's very, very challenging. And so that's why we're very stoked about the partnership with Machinations, because I think it's going to be healthy for people to come to our project knowing that, okay, these guys have put some effort into getting this thing going the right way at the start, and we felt that was super important based on some other things that have happened in the space. We just wanted to give people that confidence, knowing they could come to our project and say, okay, yeah, these guys are doing it the right way, and they've got good customer service. If there's a problem, I know I can reach people. So we have intercom all over our website, and in the Players Hub, you can get us on chat and things like that. So we have a ticketing system, for customer support. So these are just touches that we've done that are just common sense, right, in the retail world.
No.
But,
yeah, in the retail,
they don't exist in this world.
Not here.
It's just like, well, why not? Right? I mean, we're all human beings, and we want to know that our shit is going to get taken care of.
Yeah.
So,
that's
anyway.
one thing a lot of users have problem with the Wax Cloud wallet and things like that. There is no good support system at all. We have some ticket system now on Discord. It took a while for them to get that, and people are not always satisfied with what the kind of response they can get. So again,
it's just part of our learning experience from our corporate life. Of that is definitely a positive from it. That we've implemented processes into our business, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So so I mean, I think is there any other question? I can't see the questions, Andrew. So is there anything?
Not in the chat. Like right now, there are a few comments. Nick is saying the first time something VIP actually feels VIP. It doesn't just give you a chance to buy the whitelist. It's something else. But yeah, I have two questions for myself. Well, one question, but I will see if the perspective is correct. There will be a way to take part in Novopangea as an active participant and a passive participant. And if you want to partake in as a passive role, you stake Novo to a town hall, city hall, and you can rent out your land. That's how I get it, because an active person either use their own buildings or rent out their buildings and have workers. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, the only part that you can't do is you won't be able to rent out your buildings. So if you own a building, you're essentially you can rent workers, but you won't be able to actually rent out the building. So it was just we didn't want to have multiple rental layers on rental layers. So it's most of the time in real life a building owner owns the land, but we added sort of the rental layer more so on the land in the building, which is not the norm, but for the sake of most gameplays, that's what people are familiar with. So that was kind of what we went with on the passive side.
Yeah, that's I think that's what I meant, that you can have your land and then someone else can use that for their buildings. But if you place a building on it, then you will have to refresh so people can work on it. So
correct.
Then it's no longer passive.
Correct. As soon as you're putting that building on the land, you're essentially then having to manage that asset.
Yeah, so that's good, because it can attract different type of people. And a person like me, I might want more lands than I feel like I have time to manage. Then I can have buildings on those that I want to be active on. I can have my workers, and then I can have the other lands that I present to people that do not want to buy lands themselves.
Correct. Exactly.
I think that's good, because you're attractive different type of players. And it will be interesting to see what the off-chain things will do to attract new people as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's where having Novo be available multi-chain right at the start, it attracts liquidity from all chains that we plan to be on. So I think that's going to be interesting to see what we can do there. We've had a conversation with Binance already about potentially doing something there. There's a lot of interest. Polygon really wanted us to go on their chain. So I think it's encouraging. I think people are seeing the vision. People are excited about it. They think there's something here. So so I think it's giving us some confidence that we're on the right path. So yeah, it's exciting, man. So we're looking forward to it.
That's awesome. We have been chatting for a long time. You have answered a lot of questions very early in your day, which I'm grateful for. Is there anything we have not touched on so far that you feel like we should mention?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only other thing, and again, it's just giving people an understanding of what we're doing. So I mean, we are going, we're actively seeking, private investment. I think it's important for people to know. We've had some VC interest in our project, which will be part of kind of like a private equity raise that we're planning to do in conjunction then with a public sale. So we are working with a third party group right now that's really going to come in and manage our DeFi piece more effectively than we certainly could. So I think it's important for people to know, because we are wanting to scale this project. Like I said at the start, we want to keep reinvesting into it, reinvesting into off-chain things. And you need resources to do that. And we've certainly put in a lot of resources ourselves, but in order to scale at the pace that I know people want to move at, you need to have significant investment behind you. So we are planning to seek that out pretty much over the summer, and we're pretty confident that's going to happen.
Is that open for everyone all over the world or different regions?
Yeah, I think it's just going to depend, I think, on how that round goes. Whether there are individual groups that want to close the round out themselves, or, I've had personally a lot of DMs from individuals that have asked about, can I get access to the private round and those sort of things. So we will let folks know once we kind of have some conversations with some of these groups that are wanting to take a meeting with us, whether, they're planning to close the round themselves or whether there'll be room for others to participate. That's
cool. And for anyone who want to find you, links to all your places are below in the description, but novopangea.io, and you find them all. Really grateful for you coming on. Happy to sit down and chat to you. Like, we have been chatting on and off for a year on Telegram, so it feels nice to actually talk in person. Well, yeah, man. Like, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it a lot. It'd be great to circle back around once the game goes live. And like I mentioned, we're in Discord, so if anybody wants to come chat with us, just come and hang out, and we're happy to answer any more questions there too. Perfect. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for everyone for watching. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, share this wherever you want, and join and have fun in the Novopangea world. Thanks, Anders. Peace, man.
You're listening to Any Observation, the best NFT, crypto, and gaming podcast ever. With your host, Anders Bjork.
A Bitcoin bull is all I got left. Sold my clothes, gold no less. Was a suckling.